Sunday morning, September 3rd, 1939. The sun rises over a London that feels suspended in time. It is a warm, beautiful autumn day, but the streets are strangely quiet. The theatres are closed. The cinemas are dark. In millions of homes, families are gathered around their wireless sets, waiting. Deep beneath Whitehall, in the cabinet war rooms, the air is thick with stale tobacco smoke and nervous exhaustion. The British Ultimatum has been delivered to Berlin. The message is blunt. Unless the German government gives satisfactory assurances that they have suspended all aggressive action against Poland, by 11 a.m., a state of war will exist. At 10 a.m., the British cabinet meets. There is no thunderous debate. There are no grand speeches. The ministers simply sit and watch the clock hands move. 10:30, 10:45. Outside, a thunderstorm is brewing over the city, turning the sky a bruised purple. A pathetic fallacy that even Shakespeare would find heavy-handed. In Berlin, the mood is very different. At the Reich Chancellery, the British ambassador, Sir Neville Henderson, has delivered the note. Adolf Hitler sits at his desk, surrounded by his generals. When the translation is read to him, he does not fly into a rage. He sits in stone-faced silence. He looks at his foreign minister, Joachim von Ribbentrop, and asks a question that reveals his genuine shock. What now? Hitler had gambled everything on the belief that the Western democracies were too weak, too divided, and too terrified to fight. For the first time, the dictator realizes he has miscalculated. But the machine is already in motion. There is no turning back. The clock strikes 11 a.m. The deadline passes. No reply comes from Berlin. The peace of Europe, which held by a thread for 20 years, snaps. 15 minutes later, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain sits before a microphone at 10 Downing Street. He is a man who spent his entire political life trying to prevent this exact moment. His voice is tired, trembling slightly with the weight of failure. He speaks to the empire and to the world.
This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note stating that unless we heard from them by 11 o'clock, that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from Poland, a state of war would exist between us. I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany.
The transmission ends. The weight of the moment settles on millions of listeners. A generation that remembers the slaughter of the Somme and Passchendaele now realizes their children are about to face the same horror. And then, less than 10 minutes later, terror. The air raid sirens of London begin to wail. It is a rising and falling tone that pierces the Sunday calm. For the civilians on the ground, this is the nightmare scenario. They have been told for years that the bomber will always get through. They expect the Luftwaffe to appear over the Thames instantly, raining gas and high explosives on the city. Thousands rush to the corrugated steel Anderson shelters in their gardens. They clutch cardboard boxes containing their gas masks. In the dark, damp shelters, people hold their breath, waiting for the first explosions. But the sky remains empty. The sirens were triggered by a single French plane, a friendly aircraft, unidentified by the jumpy radar operators on the coast. The all clear sounds. It is a false alarm, but the psychological threshold has been crossed. The nerves of the British public are shattered before a single shot is fired in the West. While Britain is officially at war, its closest ally is trapped in a humiliating diplomatic paralysis. France does not declare war at 11 a.m. In Paris, the government is fractured. Foreign Minister Georges Bonnet is still frantically trying to broker a last-minute peace conference, desperate to avoid a conflict he knows France is not ready for. For 6 agonizing hours, the Allies are out of sync. Britain is at war, France is not. It is a diplomatic disaster that foreshadows the disjointed command structure that will doom the chaotic defense of France in the coming year. It is not until 5 p.m. that the French ultimatum finally expires, and the Third Republic reluctantly enters the abyss. Meanwhile, in Poland, the war is not diplomatic. It is visceral, and it is collapsing. On this day, September 3rd, the Battle of the Border is effectively lost. The German 10th Army has smashed through the Polish defenses, but as the Polish army retreats, chaos erupts behind the lines. In the city of Bydgoszcz, known to the Germans as Bromberg, a tragedy unfolds that will become known as Bloody Sunday. As Polish troops withdraw through the city, they are fired upon by German fifth columnists, saboteurs and snipers hiding among the local ethnic German population. The panic triggers a brutal reaction. Polish soldiers and civilians, terrified and enraged, turn on their German neighbors. In the chaotic street fighting, hundreds of ethnic Germans are killed. It is a tragedy of war, but for Joseph Goebbels and the Nazi propaganda machine, it is a gift. They will inflate the numbers to thousands, calling it a massacre, using it to justify the extreme brutality the SS will unleash on the Polish population in the coming weeks. The cycle of atrocity has begun. Back in Britain, the reality of total war is reshaping society in hours. Operation Pied Piper is in full swing. In one of the greatest logistical feats in history, over 1.5 million people are being evacuated from the major cities. The train stations of London, Liverpool, and Manchester are seas of children. They wear heavy wool coats and name tags tied around their necks like luggage. They carry small suitcases with their only possessions. Tearful mothers wave goodbye from the platforms, not knowing if they will see their children again. The cities are being emptied of their future. Yet despite the mobilization, the British military response is bafflingly cautious. That afternoon, RAF Bomber Command launches its first raid of the war, but the bomb bays are not loaded with high explosives. They are loaded with paper. In a move that infuriates the Polish commanders begging for air support, British bombers drop 13 tons of propaganda leaflets over the Ruhr Valley, titled "A Note to the German People." The British government still believes they can convince the German public to overthrow Hitler. While Warsaw burns, Britain wages a paper war. Across the Atlantic, the United States watches with horror. That evening, President Franklin D. Roosevelt addresses the American people in a fireside chat. He walks a tightrope. He promises that the United States will remain neutral, legally, but he refuses to ask Americans to remain neutral in their hearts. He tells the nation, "This nation will remain a neutral nation, but I cannot ask that every American remain neutral in thought as well. Even a neutral has a right to take account of facts. Even a neutral cannot be asked to close his mind or his conscience." He does not know how quickly that neutrality will be tested. Hitler does not wait for the diplomats. At sea, the war is instant, ruthless, and unrestricted. That evening, the passenger liner SS Athenia is steaming 200 miles west of the Hebrides, bound for Montreal. She is carrying 1,103 passengers, mostly civilians fleeing the conflict, including over 300 Americans. Beneath the waves, Oberleutnant Fritz Julius Lemp, commander of the German submarine U-30, spots the silhouette against the darkening horizon. He is young, aggressive, and jumpy. He misidentifies the liner as an armed merchant cruiser. He does not fire a warning shot. He does not surface. He orders 2 torpedoes fired. At 7:38 p.m., the first torpedo slams into the engine room on the port side. The explosion is devastating. The lights go out instantly. The ship begins to list. In the dining halls, tables overturn, trapping passengers in the dark. On the decks, there is panic, but also heroism. Crew members guide women and children to the lifeboats by the light of matches and flares. Among the passengers is a 10-year-old girl named Nicola. She later recalls the screams in the darkness, the smell of cordite and oil, and the terrifying sound of the ship groaning as it dies. Lemp, realizing his mistake as the ship sends out distress signals, dives deep and flees the scene. He knows he has just committed a war crime hours after the war began. 117 people are killed in the attack, including 28 Americans. The sinking of the Athenia shocks the world. It proves that there will be no civilized war. There will be no distinction between soldier and civilian. The gloves are off. The world is at war and no one is safe.